Hi guys, recently TRT Media, the Turkish state broadcaster, sent a film crew to Boston. Not Boston, Massachusetts, but Boston, Lincolnshire, nicknamed the most Brexit town in Britain. Now, they interviewed people in the area about how they voted and if they regret the fact that Britain is now out of the EU and outside the single market. They got a variety of responses. Now, I'll leave a link to the full video in the description of this video, which I recommend checking out, but contained within the large section of interactions with people in Boston is a farmer who explained how his industry has changed perhaps permanently, which means the damage of Brexit cannot be undone. Have a listen to this.
20 years ago or 25 years ago, there was huge amounts of family farms around and everybody had regular staff and they kept them all winter, you know. And the staff was versatile, they'd drive tractors, they'd do any job on the farm, that's what they used to do. But now, because the small family farms is gradually disappearing, the big companies, which mainly is driven by the sale from the supermarket, they want volumes. So you get the big companies that's got bigger and bigger and bigger. And the new business model has been over the last 20 years, just get your staff when you want them, you know, just ring an agency up or get somebody in just when you want them. And that's worked fine, you know, and that's how they've done it. They've streamlined the business, only probably had one tractor driver on or two tractor drivers and just brought the rest of the migrant labour in as they've wanted it.
So you understand why the big farms bring in immigrant labour.
Plus the English, they wouldn't find enough English to do this sort of work now, you know, whereas years ago when I was at school, not being awful, but they'd look in a classroom of boys and there'd be the top cream who'd go to odd ones would go to university and say you might be a good, and the rest of us at the bottom layer who weren't so bright, you'll find a job on the land, you'll find a job driving a lorry or something like that, you know, and that's how it was dictated to now. And now the schooling now, they're telling everybody they can do whatever they want to do, you know, and all of a sudden the young lads at the bottom, they're thinking, well, we're not going to do that, you know, somebody says I can do this and do the other, and that's what's drove them away from the land, because it is hard.
So what you've got here is a family business.
Yes.
A lot of people complain in Lincolnshire about the immigrant workers that have to come in.
Yes.
But you don't need them.
Well, I do think sometimes that is a little bit annoying when we're doing it as a family firm and you always sort of say, you know, that people are always assuming that's the sort of people that are working. Not that, you know, not that it's a problem, but it's getting workers, I think, actually, as well for people, isn't it, really?
Would you find it difficult?
I do it because of my brother. I'm not sure if I'd be out here all day otherwise.
Okay, so she's doing it to help her brother because they can't get the staff they need. Now, a few things to say about this, of course, you know, as I said at the beginning, this is almost a permanent state, because if we look at what the Tories have been doing over the last number of decades, they've been pushing this idea that, you know, small farms can't operate. It's better to have larger companies do this work on the basis of volumes to supermarkets and rely on agency staff. And that was fine. It worked. Not that it was good, but it worked until Brexit came along, and Brexit meant that they could no longer rely on agency staff. Now, it's very interesting what the farmer Stephen was saying before this. He was saying that in the past, the small farms had access to the staff they needed because they were from the local area. And as he said in the school, you know, the cream of the crop would go, no pun intended, the cream of the crop would go to university and everyone else would be, you know, would find a job driving a tractor or working on the farm. And that ended because there were more opportunities, more and more people. For example, people moved away from the rural areas and found better jobs, employment in cities. And you ended up with farms closing down because they didn't have, they were no longer viable, and they were bought up by these companies who focused, as he said, on volume. But they were able to operate because they had access to the workers. They couldn't find the workers in the local area because they had either moved away or they wanted to do something else, or they didn't have the skills necessary. So that's why they brought people in from the EU, from other EU countries when the UK was a member. But when Brexit came along, it put a block to that. It put a stop to that pretty much. And now they're struggling to find the staff they need. And here's a perfect example of a small farm that probably relied on migrant workers. It can't now, so members of the family are helping out. But that's not sustainable, I'm afraid. I feel really sorry for Stephen here and his sister, because this is the lifeblood of the community. You know, it's a great idea that you have a family farm, you know, the members of the family working together, maintaining this, providing food for the local community. But unfortunately, it's not really sustainable. They can't compete with the huge volumes that are going into the supermarkets. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.